Welcome on in, everyone. It's Malliem back with another weekly horror story. Full disclosure, I'm trying a new setup, so I'm in the process of finding my sound again, and I thought I'd give a little peek behind the curtain while I'm at it. If you've got a story you'd like to share, feel free to post it to my subreddit linked below. Today's story is called Path of the Beast, and it's got a classic fireplace tale vibe that I really love. If you enjoy the show, consider subscribing. Thanks! His hands trembled as he placed the last of the loose dirt over the depression before him. He reached into the pouch of seeds that hung from his belt and muttered a prayer as he scattered them over the grave, working quickly to cover them in the charred remains of the unharvested crops that littered the field. He couldn't remember how many men, women, and children he buried. The fields that once bloomed with fruits, flowers, and grain lay in ruin, burned and blackened. A crisp wind chilled them to the bone in the early light of dawn. The outsiders had not yet awoken from the previous night's revelry. He brushed the dirt from his hands, but after days of digging graves for his fallen tribesmen, the black stain of the soil remained. Looking across the field, his eyes lingered on the dozens of mounds that dotted the landscape. He knew the names of every person he had buried. This grim work was penance for his betrayal. The outsiders promised him wealth if he opened the gates and shared the crops. He refused their money, but let them in anyway. He believed generosity needed no reward. The harvest had been too much for his community alone to use. His naivete only brought slaughter, and they rewarded his foolishness by making him their servant. A tear sprung from the corner of his eye, carving a trail through his dusty cheek. He didn't bother with wiping it. The outsiders found the storehouses, plundering all that they could. Their victory should be marked with a celebration, they thought. In fact, there was enough food to last 2 winters. They could celebrate as long as they liked. In the flickering light of the torches, goblets clanged, spilling wine from the hands of laughing men. It trickled down, dyeing their hands and arms a deep red. The hall was alive with music and merriment as the outsiders filled their bellies with a bounty they did not deserve. The smell of roasted meat and alcohol filled the air. The gravedigger, as they called him, sat in the corner, head hung so low it was questioned whether he was asleep or drunk himself to death. His head was in his hands and his body ached, racked with sobs and rattling wails that could scarcely be heard over the roar of the party. The outsiders ignored him, as they always did. Their laughter echoed like screams inside Gravedigger's head. He studied the pattern of spilled wine mixed with the blood that soaked the floor of the hall. He was sickened as the smell of burnt flesh filled his nostrils, just as it did that fateful night. They continued their partying all through the winter and into spring, as Gravedigger fed them endlessly. Their hunger never ceased. As he supplied them with ever more food and drink, their bloated bodies grew and grew until they could hardly leave the seats at their tables. Spring came and went, but the party did not. As their bodies inflated to grotesque proportions, they choked and wheezed on their own laughter, their claps muted by bulging fingers. Eventually, they grew too weak to even play their own instruments. The parties became less raucous day by day. Near summer's end, Gravedigger looked out at the fields of flowers that now covered his fallen brethren. They bloomed brighter and were more plentiful than he had seen in all of his years. His eyes focused far into the distance and traced the path of the hills. 5 distinct hollows lay to the north, and a great elliptical rim stretched to the south. Gravedigger's people called it the print. Beyond the hills was land that could be tilled and farmed, but would yield a pittance during the harvest. The print, however, was discovered to have the most fertile soil in the land. The great beast that left it eons ago had never been seen, but was always honored during harvest. He turned from the field and strode towards the moldering buildings of the village. It sat silent. The only sound to be heard was the buzzing of flies. He entered the great hall, carefully stepping over and between bloating, fetid bodies, food still in their mouths and goblets held loosely in their rotten fingers. He approached the only other living soul in the village, the leader of the outsiders. He had grown so fat and so weak that he had fused with the chair he sat upon. Wordlessly, Gravedigger reached to his side, produced a dagger, and plunged it deep into the foreigner's belly. He looked into the man's eyes as he sliced him open. The man who ordered the execution of Gravedigger's people writhed in pain, choking out a gurgle that barely escaped his swollen throat. Gravedigger strengthened his resolve as the invader whimpered. He reached into the man's oversized gut and found the source of the unceasing hunger. Gravedigger stared at the man's disbelieving face, grabbed him by the jaw, and fed him his own stomach. Acid poured from the dying man's lips as Gravedigger walked away. He left the town, the rotting bodies, and the memories that haunted him. He picked a flower from the field of graves, wove it into his hair, and prayed for forgiveness. He left behind the only world, the only life he had ever known. Gravedigger climbed his way through the hills, heading north. If there was one print, he thought, there must be others. He would follow the path of the beast. If he found another print, another community like his, he would arrive as an outsider, but not as they had. Though death and destruction were all he wrought, he wouldn't bring it with him. As he made his way from his home, the air was brisk and there wasn't a cloud in sight. Behind him came a great, distant thundering that shook the earth. Something, far below the surface, was stirring.